I'm Sarah Quinlan, and we were talking today about the economy. And of course, there's many questions, and I reminded people that the big difference is not that there's uncertainty going forward, but there will be volatility, something we've really not experienced in the last 10 years. And actually leaning into that volatility can positively raise the return of real estate. And this is really understanding also the behavioral changes that have happened in the population post the recession. The key most important thing that we've seen is that we like each other again. We like our family and friends. So the focus is on time with them, and we value that more than anything. So how does this impact real estate? Well, we must be thinking about when we choose a place that we are going to work, not only do we like the people there and want an opportunity that we'd like to pursue, but we're also thinking about the distance that we will be commuting each way. We're thinking about the actual physical environment that we're working in. How do we collaborate well with each other? Those types of things are going to be very impactful. And then that leads back to housing. We are choosing right now, we can see this in spending, that people are investing in their existing housing as opposed to buying new homes. So less is more. We also don't want the big McMansions, that sort of trend to having a 5-bedroom home. No one wants to take care of it, right? Because time again is valuable, and weekends mowing, doing all those other things, plowing snow if you're up north in the winter time, those things are not things that people want to do. So people are looking for smaller homes. Multifamily has become quite popular because again, that's a shared experience where you socially get to interact with others, but you also don't have all the common job, you share that with the common area for the, in terms of all that maintenance of the property, which I think is a key thing. And then again, the other thing that's very important is we are in the experiential economy. So it is all about, as I said, spending time together. So we're traveling more, dining out more, and actually drinking more. Not a bad thing. The interesting thing about that is that it obviously leads us to think about what's the evolution of retail space, because we're buying less goods, especially clothing, for example, since we also dress more casually for work. But we're actually looking to have more assets that we invest in types of hotels and things like that, because again, we want to travel. I always remind everybody that only 40% of Americans have a passport, so we're not leaving the island. So the reality is that investment here in entertainment and in, of course, hotels and dining out should be a very profitable one for real estate investors going forward. Now, we did talk a little bit about the risks. It's not all rosy, and it's not because we're 10 years into the cycle. It's really because there's challenges on the rest of the world's horizon. We can see that China's slowing down is dramatic. We can also see the effect of Brexit coming at the end of March and the challenges that will present for Europe, and some of the issues in terms of investment that we've seen from very wealthy individuals from Russia, China, and the Middle East having fallen off for political reasons, not necessarily for fiscal reasons. And those things have had a real impact in terms of real estate investment. The second real headwind here is tariffs. And the tariffs are really causing inflation that is affecting the middle income consumer, who is the backbone of the American economy. And so this becomes a huge challenge. We hope that they roll off. And the real challenge that we see is a lot of times tariffs go on, and even though an agreement may be raised and agreed to, such as the NAFTA ×2, but the problem is we haven't seen, for example, the wood tariffs come off from Canada yet, which is obviously raising the cost of building here in the United States. These are some of the issues that we've got to watch extremely closely going forward, because again, the inflationary issue will cause the Fed to have to raise even further than the 2 that I expect this year. And then finally, I think it's very important to recognize the income inequality that we've seen and how this is going to impact what people can actually afford for real estate and how they're choosing to live their lives. And we talked a little bit about multifamily housing, low-income housing, and how we're actually thinking about working in cities and in other communities of how we can actually spur this in a joint way. And I think this is really an opportunity for the real estate community to work with civic leaders and government officials, as well as the private sector, thinking about infrastructure and not just relying on the public sector to do infrastructure, but do we actually have infrastructure so we easily can get to work, for example. And I think these are some of the opportunities that the real estate sector will be able to appreciate. And the final thing to mention of why I am optimistic, even though I've mentioned some of the risk, is to really understand that we are the intellectual property country of the world. We create and develop things. And so increasing our research and development spending will be so important for us to continue to lead in this area, which then, of course, causes us to do high-end manufacturing, and which again will need us to build more multi-use warehouse properties, for example. But also the fact as we keep inventing these things, they have a higher profit margin, can less easily be copied. For example, using an example of soybeans, which Brazil can produce equally as well as the United States can grow. So that's not as easily an edge. Whereas developing advanced electronics or jet engines or other things like that we do will be something where we can continue to keep our edge, and thus I think really continue to provide future and full employment going forward, which will benefit the U.S. economy.